In this video, we're gonna look at law enforcement agencies. So first, let's take a look at levels of food safety. So food safety in Canada operates on 3 levels: federal, provincial, and municipal. It's like a pyramid of protection, right? So let's look at the federal level. In the federal level, we have Health Canada, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, AAFC. So the Health Canada established policies and sets food safety standards, and the CFIA enforces those policies and standards. They also administer non-health and safety regulations regarding packaging, labeling, and advertising. And for the AAFC, they support the introduction of innovative food products into the market. And look at the provincial level. For example, in Ontario, 3 provincial ministries share food safety responsibility. The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs is the lead ministry. It handles dairy and meat inspection. And the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care sets food standards for food premises. And the Ministry of Natural Resources oversees food safety for fish and fish plant inspection. And on the municipal level, public health inspectors are the superheroes, ensuring the safety of restaurants, smaller manufacturing facilities, street vendors, and more. So let's give it an example. If you are a food business owner or manager, you need to comply with federal, provincial, and municipal food safety laws. Otherwise, you would get license cancelled, prosecution, or public record. In Ontario, for example, let's see the provincial laws. So in Ontario, the food premises regulation under the Food Protection and Promotion Act requires you to get food handler certificate to join a food workplace. Okay, let's look back at Health Canada. We will introduce its organization structure. So you can see that Health Canada has several branches, and in the health products and food branch, it has several departments, and in these departments we have a food directorate. So in the food directorates, it has 6 bureaus, and we will introduce these 3 bureaus. So let's take a look at the Bureau of Chemical Safety. First up, we have the Chemical Health Hazard Assessment Division from the Bureau. So imagine them as the food detectives, always on the lookout for any chemical mischief in our food. They evaluate everything from food additives to the food irradiation process. Now let's compare this one to the Food Research Division. Think of Chemical Hazard Assessment Division as the detectives, while the Food Research Division are the scientists. It conducts experiments and research to ensure our food is safe. For example, let's say there is a new food additive. The Chemical Health Hazard Assessment Division would evaluate its safety, while the Food Research Division might conduct studies on its long-term effects on health. Okay, let's move to the Bureau of Nutritional Sciences. So this bureau is the guardians of our nutritional health. First, we have the Nutrition, Regulation, and Standards Division. They are like architects, designing the blueprint for our food supply to support our nutritional health. They are leading initiatives to eliminate industrial-produced trans fats, reduce sodium in processed foods, and improve nutrition information on food labels. Imagine you are munching a bag of chips. Thanks to this division, that bag now has a clear nutrition label, and the chips inside have less sodium and no industrial-produced trans fats. Okay, move on to the Nutritional Pre-Market Assessment Division. They are like gatekeepers. They ensure that certain food ingredients, processes, and final foods are safe before it hit the market. For instance, let's say a company who wants to launch a new protein bar claiming to be high in fiber. This division would assess the safety of the ingredients and verify the high in fiber claim before the bar can be sold in stores. Finally, we have Nutrition Research Division. So basically, they are scientists conducting research to learn more about the relationship between diet, metabolism, and disease. They also maintain the Canadian Nutrient File, our national reference food composition database. For example, if you are curious about the nutrient content of apple, you can look it up at the Canadian Nutrient File. Thanks to the hard work of this division, Okay, let's move to the Bureau of Microbial Hazards. So this bill is like our food's personal bodyguard, protecting it from harmful bacteria, parasites, viruses, and prone disease agents. So first, the Microbiology Research Division is like the intelligence agency of our food safety world. They provide scientific data and expert advice to support the development of policies, guidelines, standards, and regulations. They are the ones in the lab coats, peering into microscopes and conducting experiments to ensure a food safe from microbial threats. And on the other hand, the Microbiology Evaluation Division is like the field agents. They assess microbial contaminants in foods, identify their risk to human health, and develop standards and policies to minimize these risks. They are the ones who roll up their sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty of ensuring our food is safe to eat. Now let's bring this to life with a real-world example. Imagine you're enjoying a delicious sushi roll at your favorite restaurant. Raw fish, like the one in your sushi, can sometimes carry harmful bacteria like salmonella. The Microbiology Research Division would have conducted studies to understand how salmonella behaves and how it can be controlled. Meanwhile, the Microbiology Evaluation Division would have set the standards for how the fish in your sushi would be handled and stored to prevent salmonella contamination. And the CFIA would also play a role in inspecting the restaurant and ensuring it meets federal food safety standards. Okay, so since we mentioned the CFIA, let's move on to CFIA. You can picture them as the superheroes of our food safety universe. They swooped into action on April the 1st, 1997 and have been safeguarding our food ever since. Okay, the CFIA has a mission: safe food, market access, and consumer protection. They are responsible for everything from inspecting facilities to enforcing regulations related to food. Imagine you are a farmer growing wheat. The CFIA would inspect your farm, ensuring you are following all the necessary safety regulations. They also conduct food investigation and recalls. And then let's talk a little bit about ERA mode. The CIA conducts various types of inspections, from scheduled on-site inspections to emergency inspections during food recalls. They also use the establishment-based risk assessment, which is ERA model. This model uses data and a mathematical algorithm to evaluate the level of risk food establishments represent to consumers. For instance, if you own a cheese factory, the CFIA would use ERA mode to determine how often your factory needs to be inspected based on the level of risk it poses. And then let's give it a review at what our previous video talks about: the investigation, notification, complaints, and recalls about CFIA. So when it comes to compliance and enforcement, CFIA means business. They have the power to suspend or cancel licenses, seize and detain products, and even recommend prosecution for serious violations. Let's say a company is caught selling spoiled meat. The CFIA would seize the meat, suspend the company's license, and if the violation is severe enough, recommend prosecution. The CFIA also handles investigations, notifications, complaints, and recalls. If there is a food safety incident, like a salmonella outbreak, the CFIA would investigate, notify the public, handle the complaints, and coordinate the recall of the affected product. So let's move back to some real-life examples. Let's say a Canadian company wants to import a new brand of instant noodles from Asia. The CFIA would inspect the product at the border to ensure it meets Canadian standards. The Bureau of Chemical Safety would evaluate the safety of food additives used in the noodles. The Bureau of Nutritional Science would verify the accuracy of the nutrition label on the noodle packet, and the Bureau of Microbial Hazards would set guidelines to ensure the noodles are free from harmful microbes. And then look at another example. A local beekeeper wants to sell their honey at a farmer's market. The CFIA would inspect the beekeeping operation to ensure it meets the federal regulation. The Bureau of Chemical Safety would evaluate any chemical contaminants in the honey. The Bureau of Nutritional Science would assess the nutritional content of the honey and ensure that any nutritional claims made by the beekeeper are accurate. And the Bureau of Microbial Hazards would set guidelines to ensure the honey doesn't contain harmful microbes. And then let's take a look at the steak at a fancy restaurant. A restaurant wants to serve steak to its customers. A CFIA would inspect the restaurant to ensure it meets federal food safety standards. The Bureau of Chemical Safety would evaluate the safety of any additives used in the steak's preparation. The Bureau of Nutritional Science would set the standards for any nutritional claims the restaurant makes about the steak. And the Bureau of Microbial Hazards would set guidelines to ensure the steak is cooked to a safe temperature. So that's for today. See you at the next video.